Welcome to DEFCON 3. I'm KT McFarland. We're only hours away until Great Britain heads to the polls in an election with two main parties, the Conservatives and Labour, running neck and neck. And we're just hours away from deciding whether or not they're going to stay in the European Union. Well, to the debate over whether there is going to be a future of Britain's nuclear weapons. National security and foreign policy are a top concern for voters there. So if major changes are made, is there potential for a major impact on U.S. policy? Well, here with more is Professor Anand Menon from King's College London. Welcome, Professor. So tell me, what are we to expect in tomorrow's election?
Well, what makes this election really interesting is no one's entirely sure what to expect. The polls have been neck and neck all the way through. At the moment, it looks like the Conservatives might get slightly more seats in our Parliament than the Labour Party, but not enough to form a majority, given the number of parties we're going to have in there. So it's going to be a bit of a mess afterwards. We're not going to have a clear outright winner.
Explain to me why, we tend to think of elections in Great Britain or even in the United States, it's two political parties. But this time you have four, maybe even five political parties. Explain to me what the difference is and which ones people are going to vote for.
Well, we have the two major parties. The Conservatives and Labour are sort of broadly speaking the equivalent of the Republicans and the Democrats. But over the last years, we've had the rise of smaller parties, such as the Scottish Nationalist Party, whose name tells you what they're after. They're after independence for Scotland. There's a Welsh party called Plaid Cymru. There's a Green Party, which focuses on environmental issues. And there's a UK Independence Party, which is focused on taking Britain out of the European Union. So our elections have changed a lot in the last 5 or 6 years.
So is there a serious, are people serious about having Great Britain resign from the European Union?
Well, probably not, to be honest. I mean, opinion polls still show there is a very solid majority for Britain staying in. We've got a rather odd debate here because the debate is about whether or not the people should get to have a vote rather than whether on what the people actually think. So the Prime Minister at the moment, David Cameron, he wants Britain to stay in the European Union, but he wants people to have a referendum to be able to express their view as well. So at the moment, we're the question before, which is, should we vote? Mm-hmm. If David Cameron is re-elected, then we will vote. Then the question will be, will we stay in?
Well, then what happens to the special relationship? The United States and Great Britain have historically been on the same side of war and the same side of peace. Economically, we seem to be in tandem with a lot of each other's policies. What does it mean for the United States if you have any one of these several outcomes you're talking about?
Well, I mean, there are two things, I think, to say, first of all, about the relationship with the United States. Firstly, it's cultural. So there are very strong cultural links, and changes of government won't affect those. And secondly, very specifically, there are very close intelligence links between our intelligence services, and I don't think an election would affect those either. But in other terms, it could have enormous impacts. I don't think the United States would be very happy if the UK were to leave the European Union, because we're seen as an ally who can press a position that the US likes within the EU. And we wouldn't be able to do that if we were outside. And also, neither of our major political parties, the Conservatives and Labour, have agreed to promise 2% of GDP in defence spending, which all NATO members in theory have subscribed to. So the outcome of the election might have implications in terms of military collaboration.
Well, but nobody's talking about Great Britain resigning from NATO at this point, are they?
No, absolutely not. Except, I mean, the defining feature of this election is as soon as you answer a question, you realise you've got it slightly wrong. The Scottish Nationalist Party is committed to getting rid of Trident, of nuclear weapons. They're not saying we should pull out of NATO, but they are saying that we should get rid of British nuclear weapons. It doesn't really matter because they're not going to form a government, but there are sort of small currents amongst the smaller parties. The Green Party wants us to leave NATO, but chances are they'll only get one seat in Parliament, so again, they're not going to be decisive.
You said that there's a lot of undecided voters. Do you anticipate a high turnout tomorrow?
It's always quite hard to predict, to be honest. Turnout in this country has been quite low for the last 2 or 3 elections. And a lot of undecideds are also disillusioned. So it's not just a question of I don't know who I want to vote for. It's also a case of a plague on all their houses. I'd rather not have any of you. So there won't be a spectacularly high turnout. I think it might be fairly similar to last time, hovering around 60%, something like that.
Okay, well, thanks for breaking it down for us, Professor.
No worries.
Check out foxnews.com for more on the British election. I'm KT McFarland, and thanks for watching DEFCON 3.